Hey, this is Bob the Web Builder and welcome back to the Greenshift full website build series. In the last video, we discovered which blocks Greenshift offers, what the difference is between Greenshift blocks and Greenlight blocks, and we took a look at the class system. In this video, we are going to build out the template for my website. So we're going to build the header, the footer, and the single page and post templates. Let's go!
In a full-site editing team like Greenshift, you will find the templates under Appearance and Editor. And then when we click on Templates, we will get those templates by default. Which templates are included depends on the theme, but these are included with Greenshift. So first of all, we have an archive template, which is for like blog posts and custom post type archives. Then we have a product archive, which is of course a special archive for products for web shops. Then we have a blank canvas. That's a blank template that does not include anything, not even a header or a footer. Then we have the homepage templates. Then we have a cart and checkout template, of course, again for web shops. Then an index template, which is a fallback template for all pages when a more specific template is not defined. Then we have a page without the title. Then we have the 404 page, which is used if a page does not exist anymore. So for example, when someone clicks on a link in Google and it lands on a page that does not exist anymore, they will land on this page. This template will be used. Then this is the normal page template, the default page template. Then we have a product search results page, of course, again for web shops, a normal search results template, then a single post template and a single product template. So the templates we are going to look at today are the single post template and the single page template. So let's open the page templates. And when we click on the list view over here, we will see 4 items: the header, 2 group blocks, and a footer. So the header and the footer, they are template parts. And these are just groups, but this one has a template part inside it, which is the title. So in that it has another block, group block, and it has the title block and the separator, which are core WordPress blocks. And then it has another group block, which holds the content. So what we are going to do, because we would like to have this custom, we are going to delete this. And we are going to use a Greenshift block instead, which is called the main block. So let's search for that /main. Okay, and in that we would like to have the content block. And this is a WordPress core block that just loads all the content of the page in this template. So that's all we are going to do for our page template at this moment. So now we are going to move on to the header block, and for that we click on header, then on edit. And as you can see, we have a group block with a row block. In there's another row block which holds the site logo and the navigation, and there's a buttons block which holds this download button over here. So first thing we are going to do, of course, is delete these as well and replace them with a Greenshift div block. So we want this second one, and we are going to call this our header wrapper. All right. Then when we look at the live site, we can see that we need 2 header rows. So we need a top header and a main header. The top header which holds the slogan and the email address, and the main header which holds the search button, the logo, and the navigation. All right, so let's add 2 rows then. Again, we need div elements for those. Okay, so now we have our 2 rows. And as you can see, those rows are full width, but we also need a row in there, a wrapper in there that's the content width, like this. So we will add another div element in this one, and another div element in this one. Okay, so now let's call this the top header. And let's call this top header content. And let's call this the main header. And the main header content. So now we already have the structure that we need, and we are going to add some classes for this. The first class we are going to add is header wrapper. And the next one is called top header. Then we have top header content. Again, global. Then we have our main header. And the main header content. All right, so now we have our classes in place and we can start styling things. Okay, so first of all, for the top header, we need a yellow background. So we go to the class, and we go to the background, and we select the color that we need from the Greenshift palette. So not the theme palette, the Greenshift palette, we are going to use those. And absolutely nothing happens because there is no content at the moment in this block. So we need to add some contents to show the background. And what we need to add is a slogan and a email address. All right, so let's go to top header content and let's add some wrapper divs to hold our content in this case. So first of all, we don't need a wrapper div for this one. We only need a wrapper div for this because this one has an icon as well. So for this one, we are just going to use a div element with text. So this. And we're going to add Bob the web builder builds and improves websites, which is of course my slogan. Okay, let's save this. And let's add a class here as well. So this is in the top header and it is a slogan. So let's call it top header slogan then. So for this, we need it to align to the right, as you can see. So let's do that first. And for that, we're going to set the top header contents to a flexbox with this direction, and we align it to the end. Here we go. That's what we want. Okay, next thing we see is that this is a with a smaller font than this one, so we need to adjust the font size. And you could just do that on the class, of course. Over here, we can set the font size, but we want to reuse this font size maybe somewhere else in the site as well. We at least need it for the email address as well. Maybe also for the menu. It seems a little bit larger, but okay. So we are going to make a variable for this that we can use all through the site. So for that, we are going to duplicate this header template because we want to go back to the admin. And we are going to go to the Greenshift stylebook. And then go to the variable step, and we're going to add a variable for this small font size. So it's as you can see, we have multiple font sizes on the site, and this one is probably the smallest we're going to use. So we call this font size XS, as in extra small. So let's use font size XS. All right, let's copy this and use it as a variable name as well. And now we're going to figure out what font size we're going to use. And for this case, I want to use 0.9 REM. So REM is a relative font size that is relative to the main font size of the site. So if I'm using a main font size of like 1.2 REM, then this is 0.9 is relative to that one. All right, so let's set this as a size and click on add new. So now we have the font size XS. So let's save this and then refresh our header template. And then when we go to typography options, top header, slogan and typography options, we have a little triangle over here in the size box. And when we click on it, we can select our variable. And as you can see, that works fine. So this seems to be a little bit bolder than the normal. Well, maybe it's just right. Let's keep it at this for now. And now we are going to add the email address. So the email address needs a wrapper div because there's an icon and a text. So let's add the wrapper div. So let's call this the slogan. So we know what it is. Keep the structure panel organized. And let's call this the email address wrapper. Okay. So this needs two things. First of all, it's a div element with text again, and also an SVG element for the email envelope. All right. So of course this needs to be in this wrapper. And this one needs to be above this one. Okay. So now we are going to go to the SVG element, and Greenshift comes with a small icon library, which has the most common icons already by default in it. But as you can see, if we search for envelope, we only have the open envelope, and we want a closed solid envelope, I should say. So we are going to use FontAwesome for this. So let's go to FontAwesome. Let me search for envelope. All right, so here it is. This one is the one that I want. So let's go to the SVG tab over here, and let's copy the codes. You only have to click it to copy it in FontAwesome. And then we go to the SVG codes tab of Greenshift, and we're going to paste that in. Here we go. So this is the envelope icon, and we want to give this a class as well. Well, we're going to do it a different way. We could just add a class like top header icon for this one and style that, but we can also just go to top header or top header content. So let's go here, top header, and add a subselector. And for this, we're going to use the SVG. That's, of course, this icon now. And we're going to set a size for that. And let's make it like 1 REM. Don't worry, 1 REM height as well. And that doesn't show over here because it has a set width and height in the default settings. So let's delete those. And now we get the size that we would like. All right. So now for the div element with text, I should have actually used another one. I should have used this one, the link element, because of course it's a link to my email address. So for the content, we are going to say bob@bobthewebbuilder.com. bob@bobthewebbuilder.com, and the button link is going to be a mail to link dot bob@bobthewebbuilder.com. All right, so let's save it. So just like the slogan, we want to have a smaller font over here. So let's go to that and let's call this top header email. All right. And again, I could have just set it on the top header with a subselector, but in this case, we are going to use a custom class for this. Whatever you want, you can do both. And we are going to use font size, again, the font size XS. And in this case, I also do not want this underlined. So I'm going to set text decoration to none. And as you can see now, it's not underlined anymore. And of course, do not forget to save the class. Also, I don't think I saved the slogan as well. And now let's go to the front end and see how it looks. Yeah, so this is basically what I want. So now, as you can see, we need some spacing between the slogan and the email address as well. So we are going to go back to the style book because we want a variable for the spacing as well. And let's call this space S. Something like this, space S, because it's a small spacing. And well, let's use 0.7 rem for that one. And it is a spacing, so let's use that. So it will nicely be categorized over here. And again, let's make sure we have saved everything we have done. So the top header slogan is saved. Top header email is saved. And let's save this one for security reasons as well, just to be safe. And let's refresh it now. All right. So now we are going to our top header and top header content class. We are going to the flexbox and we are going to add a column gap. And for the column gap, we are going to use the variable we just created, which I didn't seem to have saved. So that is something you have to remember to save everything you do, because otherwise it doesn't save it in the database, and then we can't, of course, render it either. So top header content, column gap, and now it should be there, save space S. All right, so that seems about right. Very nice. And we also need some space between the envelope and the email address. And that needs to be a bit smaller than this one, so we're going to call it space XS. So let's go to the Greenshift stylebook again. Let's call the space XS, and let's make this like 0.3 rem. Okay, let's save it again. First add new and then save it. So it is over here as well. Refresh the builder. And then go to the email address wrapper. And we're going to set this as a flexbox as well. All right. And we're going to add the column gap of space XS for this one. And we want to align everything to the center. So let's click this one as well. And as you can see, now it falls into place and nice and centered. All right. So sometimes Greenshift doesn't render the classes in the builder right. So you saw that there was no spacing between the slogan and the email address until I click on the top header content, which has the class that has this setting. And then it will save again. Okay. So what we also see are some local classes over here. I've set this on the local class. We do not want to do that. Well, in this case, we might. Normally, we only use global classes, but in this case we can use a local styling as well, because we are not going to need this anywhere else on the site. It's just for this specific div, and then we can use a local class. So that's not a problem. So now we have our top header ready. Well, almost. We need a little bit of spacing on top and bottom as well. So let's do that. Let's use one of our spacing classes that we already have for this, and let's go to top header content again. Add some spacing here. So we're going to use a variable as well, and maybe a space XS is enough. Probably is. Let's save it. Let's save it over here so it will be saved to the database class as well. And let's see it on the front end. Yeah, this looks good. Okay. So the only thing we need now is set this a bit to the middle, so it only comes to the content area that we have defined here. So first of all, we have to define the content area. And of course, we are going to do that with a variable as well. And we're going to call this variable content width. All right. And we're going to set that like 1360 pixels. You can, of course, use whatever you want for that. And this is size as well. Well, it's actually a layout value. So we are going to use that. Save it again. Go back here. So that's why we needed the top header contents div, so we can contain the contents within that value, within that predefined width. So we are going to set it as the max width for this class, and we have it here, content width. Save it, and now it is that width, but it's not centered yet, because we need a margin auto on that as well. So let's set margin auto left and right. And now it should be centered in here. And now it looks exactly like we want it. So now let's move on to the main header. Here we go. First, we're going to main header content. And on this class, we want to set the same values as the top header content. So we are going to the width, set a max width of content width. And we set the left and right margin to auto, so it's nice and centered. All right. And now let's see what we need as far as the elements concerned. So we need a logo, we need a search bar, and we need a navigation. Okay, so let's add those. First, we are going to add an image element. We are going to add a search bar. And this is a core block. Greenshift does have a search bar block as well, but that's in a paid add-on, so we will look at that later. And then we will add the navigation. And we could use the default navigation block, which is the core block. But we are going to make this custom as well. So we're going to delete this. And instead, we are going to add a div element. And we're going to change the tag for that to a nav. Okay. Then in that, we are going to add a UL element, which is this one. And in that, we are going to add a link element. All right. So let's see what we have. We have the nav element over here. In there, we have to put the UL, which has an LI element as well. And in here, we have to put the link element. But the LI element in Greenshift is set to text by default. And then we can't paste anything in it. So we need to set that to blocks. And then we can put the link element in here. All right, perfect. So the first link we would like to have is to the home page. So let's set it to home, and the link needs to go to slash, which is just root of the website, of course, which is the homepage. And now it's time to get some styling going. First, let's add our logo, which is already in the library, of course. Okay, and let's rename things so we keep the structure panel structured and clear. So let's call this logo. Search is fine. This we want to call this nav, and we want to call this nav item. All right. So now we know what everything is, and now it's time to add some classes to go and style these. So first of all, we add a class to the logo, and we're going to call it main header logo. Main header logo. Let's add a global one, yes. Then we go to search, but since the search is a core block, it does not support Greenshift styling options. So we have to come back to that a bit later. And for the nav, we're going to call it main header nav. All right, let's add that as well. Then we have the main header nav UL, and UL stands for unordered list. And we have the nav item. And I could just call this nav item or logo without the main header prefix, but maybe we want to use that elsewhere on the site as well with some different styling. So that's why I use the main header prefix in this case. Okay, so now we have the link, which is called the main header nav link. And let's add a global class for that as well. Okay, so let's save everything. And now let's look what we need to do. As you can see, the logo, the search bar, and the navigation are all below each other, but we want those next to each other. So first, what we're going to do is go to the main header content, and we are going to make this a flexbox. Okay, so now they are next to each other, but as you can see, these are to the right and this one is to the left. So we want to add a space between and justify content. And now you see these are to the right and this one is to the left. Well, actually the search bar is centered now, which is not what we want, but we want these on top of each other instead of next to each other. So we need to add a wrapper div for these. So let's do that. And in there, we're going to set the search bar and the nav, and now it is as we want. Let's look at it at the front end. And of course, again, I forgot to save my classes, so it will not render on the front end. So let's save this. And now it should look like I want it. All right, well, this is a good start. Next, we are going to add some styling to the logo. So for that, we are going to the logo class, which is over here, and let's see what needs to be done. So first of all, the logo on the live site is a bit smaller than the logo we have right now. So let's click on the right mouse button and click on inspect to see which size the logo is. So now we get the inspector and we see the height is 134 pixels and it has a width of auto. Okay, so let's do that. So we're going to the size, set a height of 134 pixels and a height of auto. Okay, that looks good. And now we also need to move it up a bit because, of course, this one overlaps a bit with the top header. And for that, we are going to use some negative margin. So we are going to the spacing tab and we set a negative margin of like minus 30 pixels, maybe just a little bit less, minus 28 might be a bit better. Okay, let's save it, Let's see how this looks on the front end and compare it to the original. And as you can see, that looks quite good. Perfect. Okay, so let's move on to the navigation. All right, so what do we need to do? First of all, we see that my links do not have any underlining. So let's remove that. Let's go to the link class. And let's set this to none. Okay, that's nice. And it also does not have this little dot in front of it. And we can set that from the UL list element. So under list style, we have now default, but if we set it to none, there will be no dot in front of it. But there will be some spacing, so we want to set this all to 0. And it might be on the UL, it might be on the LI, it might be both, I'm not sure. So we're going to set the margin left and the padding left to 0. Okay, so it was on the UL, perfect. So now that's fixed. Okay, and now we can add some more navigation items. So the navigation item, the second one is let Bob build your new website. All right, so let's copy this one, or duplicate it actually. And let's say, let Bob build your new website. Okay. And we're going to add the button link a bit later because we do not have the pages built yet. Then duplicate it for the next item, which is let Bob improve your website. So let Bob improve your website. Delete new, okay. And then WordPress training. WordPress training. Okay. And then blog and contact. Training is to be capitalized. All right. That needs to be blog. This is going to be contacts. Okay. So now we have this. But as you can see, they are below each other. And of course, we want them side by side like this. So again, we are going to make this nephew L a flexbox. And now they are next to each other. And of course, we also need some spacing between. Well, good thing we already have that set up. So we go to the column gap again. And we set some spacing between, like space S in this case should be fine. Set that for the row gap as well. We don't need that yet, but maybe later. Maybe space S is a bit too small in this case. These are a little bit further apart. So I might need to add a new variable, which is just called space M, and make it a little bit bigger than this. So we're going to back to the style sheet, or to the style book, I should say, and we're going to add something called space M. And let's make that just one rem then. Just a bit bigger. It's again a spacing. Perfect. Let's save the stylebook post. Go back here. Let's sure we save everything over here. Let's save our classes. Hope I didn't forget anything. And let's refresh the builder. Okay, that all looks good. We're going back to the UL list element. And instead of space S, we are now going to select space M. So that looks a bit better. Let's look at it on the front end. But on the live side, these are a bit smaller than they are over here. So we need to add another variable for our font size in the menu. And let's see what we already have. So we already have font size XS. So now let's make a font size S, because the XS is used over here, but the menu is just a little bit bigger than this over here. So we need a different variable for that. And let's make it font size S then. And let's make that just one rem. This one is just a little bit smaller. It's a sizing in this case. Okay. Again, let's save everything. Refresh the builder. So we are going back to the right class, which is the nav link in this case. And we're going to select font size S. And that looks quite good as well. All right. See it on the front end, looks fine there as well. But this is just a little bit bolder. So we want to add some font weights to it. Let's see if bold is a bit too big. Maybe something like semi-bold or medium. Yeah, this looks quite good. Let's keep it as this. That looks well. All right. So let's keep it like this. And the only thing we need now is another color for the active element. As you can see, this one is lighter than the one that's active. When we go to this page, then this one is the darker one. So we are using another color as the base. So let's select that. Let's go to the color tab, and under both text color and link color, we need a lighter shade of this. We are going to the style book again. We're going to colors, and we're going to add a new color to the Greenshift palette, not to this one. We want it over here. And let's use like 666 for that. That's probably the right value in this case. Save it again. Let's go to the back end. And we probably need to refresh again to load that color from the database. Okay. Go back to the class. Just click on it to make it a bit faster. And go to the color tab. And then we should be able to select our new color, which is over here. Yes. Select it both for text and link. So now we just need to add the styling to our search bar. But that's a little bit more difficult because it doesn't have the Greenshift class system. So for that, we are going to the wrapper, the search plus nav wrapper, and we're going to give that a class. So let's call this main header and search nav wrapper. Okay, Let's add that. And now we need to be able to select these elements that we want to style. So for that, we are going to the front end. And let's see what we don't need. First of all, we don't need a search label that's over here. So let's inspect that to see what it's called. And it says here block search label. So let's copy that class. And now let's add a subselector which targets that class. And don't forget to add a space and a dot. So the dot is to add the class and the space is to say it's in the main header search wrapper. All right, so let's save that. Enter and save. Yeah, all right. And now we can just set this to display none, which is under layout, display none. And you see now it is gone. Very nice. Okay. So the next thing we need to style is, let's see, our button. So let's see what that's called. Inspect it again. This one is called WP search button. So this is the class we're going to target. All right. So we add another step selector, again space dot, and then paste what we copied. And let's see what we want to do with that. We want to have a light gray background color. Yeah, okay. So let's say the background color has to be this one. Okay, and then we need a text color, which is the darker gray we just made. Okay, so that looks nice. Save it, save it. Let's see on the front end. Yeah, that looks better. Well, it seems this is a little bit darker gray. We do not have that in our color palette yet, so we need to add it. Again, we go to the style book and we add this color. And maybe we need something like 999. Seems a bit too dark. Let's make it a little lighter. Yeah, something like that seems right. Okay, let's save this again. And let's go back in here. Make sure we have saved everything in here. Okay, go back to search nav, back to the class, back to the button, back to the background color, and let's use this one. See how this looks. It's a bit too dark, so we are going to find out which is the exact color that we used here. We can just copy that. So here we got the color which is DDD. Okay. So let's go back to the style book. And now let's just use the color we had before and let's just adjust that to the new color. Let's save it. And now we don't even have to adjust it because it already is adjusted globally. And as you can see now it's a bit lighter and now it's the right color. Okay, what else do we need to do here? This doesn't have a border radius, which this one does. So let's remove that as well. Let's go back to our button class. Let's go to the border and set the radius linked to 0 pixels. Okay, perfect. And of course, it's a bit less high than this one, but that may have to do with the height of this one as well. So first we're going to style this. So as you can see on the front end, it needs to be a little bit less high than this one is. So let's see how we can do that. First of all, probably by setting the font size of the input. So what is the input? The input is called block search input. At least they added classes to everything so we can easily target them. So again, space dot, and then what we copied. And let's set a font size of like, well, we already have, of course, font sizes. So let's make it font size S in this case. Yeah, and as you can see, it already is a bit smaller. That's great. So let's see if it looks all right now. Is this the way we want it? Nah, just a little bit smaller. So let's make this font size XS then. Then it should be perfect. Then also what we see is that there is some spacing between this one and this one that we do not have on the live side. So let's see if we can remove this. Again, we are going to see how this is built up. Okay, so it seems the button has a bit of margin on the left, so we have to remove that. Let's go to the button class again. Let's go to spacing and set the margin to 0. And here we go. Now it connects perfectly. So that looks just fine. Let's see what else we need to do. First of all, the button is a leather gray. It's the same gray as the search button. So let's go to the border of the search input. Let's make it just 1 pixel and solid. And let's make it this gray color, which is just a little bit lighter. It should look a little bit better. Yeah, that looks good. The only thing we still have is a bit too much padding on the button over here. So once again, we go to the button class. To the button class. And we are going to the spacing tab. And now we are going to the padding. And let's set our space XS for that. Both over here and over here. And we would like this to be space S. Just a bit bigger than the space XS, but not too big. Okay, that looks good as well. Now it all looks fine. Very nice. Just that this one needs to have a max width of, let's see, maybe 500 pixels. Let's try that. So the input, let's go to the spacing tab again, or to the size tab, sorry, and let's set a max width of 500 pixels. All right. And of course, this needs to align to the right. So we need to set that. And let's make a flexbox of this one then. And let's justify the content, align the contents to the end. All right, that's great. But now this one becomes way too small. That's not what we want either. So let's just make it a fixed width then of 500 for now. We will have to adjust that later for mobile, of course, because it will be too big for there, but let's make it like 500 here and then set the max width over here. Okay, let's see how that looks. Okay, that looks fine. Yep, that's the way we'd like it. And then, of course, we would need some spacing from the top. So let's set that again. Set that on this class, and let's set some padding, not on the input class, but on the wrapper class. And we're going to set some padding on top in this case. And of course, we have our space classes for that. So let's set some space S. And that's a bit too small. Let's see, do we have a space M? Yeah, we already have a space M. Okay. Maybe that's a bit too small either. So let's add a space L class for this. So we're going back to our variables and add space L. And space L is going to be like 1.2 rem, which is the default font size as well. Okay, so this is a space, and let's also make a space XL, which will be 1.5. Save it. Save this for safety, and let's refresh it. Go back to our wrapper over here. Go to the spacing, go to tab. And here we go. Space L seems about right. Okay, this is a bit bigger, so let's use space XL in this case then. But, well, we don't have to do it perfectly like it's on the original side, but still, let's try to do it as close as possible. So let's make this XL. Yeah, I like it like this. Seems to be fine. So now the last thing we need to do, when we go, for example, to another page that doesn't have, well, it does have, but you saw it when it was loading, that it has a little gray border over here. Maybe with the block you can see that clearer. So it has a little gray border. So we need to add that as well. And as you can see, it goes all the way through. So we want to set that on the header wrapper in this case. So let's get to the header wrapper class. Let's go to border. So let's click on this. And then we can select the bottom one, 1 pixels, solid, and it has to be light gray. So this one should be fine. Okay, this is a little bit too light. It's almost invisible. So we need a little bit darker color for that one. So let's try this. Yeah, that's way better. Okay, so there we have our header. So now our header is done. Let's move on to the footer. For that, I click on the logo in the left corner, and we're going to the template parts area. And in the template parts, we also see the footer. So let's click on it. And let's delete what's already there by default. So delete this one and delete this one as well. And instead, let's add a Greenshift div block, which we are going to call the footer wrapper. And let's see what we need to stip in there. So we need a black bar with my company name in there. All right. And we also need a copyright logo. So we need 2 elements. Let's add a SVG element for the logo, SVG, and let's add a div element with text. For the name. All right, let's call this Bob, the web builder. And now we need an SVG copyright. Let's see if it's available in the Greenshift library. No, it doesn't seem to be, so we're going to take it from FontAwesome. Okay, we want this open one here. Let's copy the SVG code and let's paste it in here. Perfect. Okay, so what do we want with this? We want to align it to the left, and we of course want them to be the same on the same line. So let's make this a flexbox again. So that's done. Let's add a bit of spacing. In this case, probably like a space XS, something like that. Maybe space S, just a little bit larger. But of course, this needs to be smaller, the SVG element. So let's just add a size for this. Let's remove the default ones. And let's make this, let's see what we have, like font size XS, maybe font size S. Is that the right one? Yeah, let's make it font size S. Let's make this one font size S as well. And as you can see, I'm just using the local styles in this case. I do not need to add a class because this is just for the footer. We're not going to use that anywhere else, so we can just use the local styling. But we do use the variables, so we can easily change them side width whenever we want. Okay, so for the footer wrapper, we want to set a background color, the dark gray one, and the color of the SVG element. And the text, it should be like this dark gray. This might be a bit too dark. Let's see on the front end in a moment. It's almost invisible, I think, like this. Yeah, we do have it quite dark over here as well, but maybe on the new side we want it a bit lighter so it's readable. Let's make it this color. Yeah, that's better. Okay, so now for the footer wrapper, what I forgot to do is set an inner wrapper. So we need to add that. Because of course the footer needs to be full width, but the content needs to be contained within our content width. So that's why we need that. Let's put these ones in here. And let's call this footer content. Okay, SVG needs to be first. So now we need to set this to flexbox. Let's put the content to the start and align it to the center. And of course set the column gap. So let's see now that these are the right sizes. What we need is XS should be enough. Yeah, I guess it will be. All right. And now on the footer content, we also need to set the max width of content width. And again, we of course are going to use our variables for that. Over here, yes, this is the content width. Perfect. Okay, let's see how that looks on the front end. But I forgot to set the margin. to auto, so it's nice and centered. Of course, it's now left aligned, but we want it nice and centered. Probably need to set this to be 100% width to make this work as I want. Okay, so let's save this. Yes, now it is the way I want it. Now it's contained within my content width and it's the same as my header. That's perfect. All right. So now all we need to do is add some spacing to the top and bottom of the footer content. So let's go to the footer wrapper and add some spacing over here. We are going to use the gap again, or the space, like space S, space XS. Let's see, space XS should be fine. Just a very small one, like the top header one. Let's see how that looks. And that looks very nice already. Okay, so that's the footer. Now all that's left to do is get back to the templates and set the post template for now. Appearance and then editor. And then let's select the single post template. So click on templates over here and find the single post template, which is over here called single. And again, of course, we are going to do the same as with the page template. So we're going to delete the groups. We are going to add a main element. So /main. And we're going to add the content element in here as well. So for posts, you might also want to add a title by default. I'm not going to do that here, but it is possible. So you might want to add something like post title. If you're going to go over here, you can put that in front of the content, and now the title will automatically display with all your blocks. You can also add a featured image as well. So if we're going to look for the post image in this case, which is just the featured image. So you might want to do something like this. So the title, the featured image, and the content. So that's also possible, but in this case, we are just going to use the content block. And then we are ready with setting up our templates.
So now we have set up the header, the footer, the single page and the single post template from our website. In the next episode, we are going to build the homepage. So subscribe so you don't miss anything and see you in the next video.